Boys and girls, welcome to a video on biomes, ecosystems, and habitats. In this video, we'll do a brief cover on what these terms mean, how they differentiate from each other, and what makes them similar. Right, so let's start with just definitions. So biomes are large areas of land that have their own unique climate, which creates its own unique habitats and ecosystems. And habitats are areas or places that provide food, water, and a chance for shelter for indigenous life, for the living things found there naturally. That's what indigenous means, okay? And ecosystems are places where living things are interacting with each other and interacting with non-living things. Right, so I know what you're thinking. You didn't just come here for me to read definitions like, from out of a dictionary. You came here for understanding, and that's what I'm about to give you. So hold on to your seat. Biomes. Let's start there. Biomes are, like we said, they cover a large area. And if you can look at the world map, you'll see all different biomes and the large areas they cover. By the way, if you need to just take a moment to really absorb all this information, you're welcome to pause the video at any time. That's what makes videos so great. So as I go, if I'm going too fast, just pause the video, do take your time, do what you need to do, and then unpause it when you're ready. All right, so I want us to focus on the tropical rainforest biome, which is symbolized by this green areas. So those green areas, according to the key, are the tropical rainforest biomes. And if you noticed, all the tropical rainforest biomes fall within this line. And this imaginary line is a line of latitude called the equator. And the equator can be found running along the center of the Earth. Well, not through the center, like along the middle, right? And it's the imaginary line called the equator. And this is where you find all Earth's rainforests and nowhere else. If you're not sure what a rainforest is, if I need to refresh your memory, it looks kind of like this, all right? And you'll notice it's very green. All right, so there are several different rainforests around the world or on Earth. There you have the Central American rainforest, you have the famous Amazon rainforest, which is the most well-known of all rainforests, you have the Congo Basin rainforest, and you have the Madagascan rainforest. That's right, the exact same rainforest where the movie Madagascar mostly takes place. Now, while I have you here, do you remember this character? You know him as King Julian. Well, King Julian is a lemur. Specifically, he is a ring-tailed lemur. All right, and like all lemurs, you can only find him in Madagascar, and that's because lemurs are mammals mammals belong to the primate family and are endemic to Madagascar. Endemic meaning you can only find them living naturally in Madagascar and nowhere else in the world. All right, back to the map. And then lastly, but not least, we have the Southeast Asian rainforest. Right, I want us to focus on the Amazon rainforest, which is my favorite rainforest. It's always been growing up. And it's the largest rainforest in the world as well. So there's that. So if you look at the map here, you see that the Amazon rainforest is found in the continent of South America and the northern part of South America. So as you can see, it's a biome, first of all, and like we said, biomes take up a large area and it has its own climate. So if you go into this region, you'll experience weather conditions that are different from the rest of the continent. And that's what really makes this a biome on its own. So the Amazon rainforest biome is actually spanned across several different countries: Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, and the French Guyana, which I can only imagine is different because you say it with a French accent. I don't really know. Anyway, the Amazon rainforest mostly covers or is found mostly in the country of Brazil, or how Vin Diesel says it, Brazil. The Amazon rainforest has unique climatic conditions, including high rainfall, and it is very sunny and very hot, which is typical of the rainforest biome climate conditions. But in the Amazon, the average temperature of the year for the year is about 28 degrees Celsius, which is 10 degrees Celsius higher than you can find here in South Africa. Right, our average temperature is only 18 degrees. And it gets as hot in the Amazon, it can reach temperatures of 40 degrees Celsius. That is very hot. Imagine how much you'll be sweating. All right, so if we go into the biome, if we zoom in, we go inside the biome, the rainforest, we'll find different habitats, right? So inside a biome, we get the habitats. And the habitats in the rainforest can include swamps, rivers, mountains, and the forest itself, the jungle area, which is the forest floor and up in the trees. These areas or these habitats are where the animals, the living things, plants included, I keep saying animals, but when I say living things, I mean the five kingdoms of life. They are provided with food, water, and chance for shelter. And as you can see, each habitat has its own unique features, and with those features come its own unique types of animals that can survive in those conditions and can find food, water, and shelter within those conditions. And then if you look at the ecosystem, right, it's actually the most, it can be the smallest and it can be the largest of those three terms. And let me explain. So if you look here, we see one image, which is just the jungle forest area, right? But you get different ecosystems inside that one habitat. You get the forest floor, you get the understory, you get the canopy, you get the emergent layer. And why they're different ecosystems is because it's the interactions between the living and non-living things and the living things themselves. So on the forest floor, you'll have the jaguar, interacting with animals like the giant anteater. So it's a food relationship. The jaguar eats the giant anteater, right? And that's the interaction that they have. But you also find on the floor, you'll find more water than you'll find higher. You won't find as much water up in the trees than you'll find on the ground. And the soil is on the ground, so that's another type of unique interaction that these plant animals have with the ground, that there's soil and there's more water. And typically, if you go higher, you'll find, here, for example, in the emergent layer, you'll find more sunlight because the trees aren't blocking the sun, and you'll find a very different conditions. You'll find different interactions. And these animals on the ground and the animals in the emergent layer might never interact with each other. They might never see each other. They might never ever meet. This forms different ecosystems because if they're not interacting, they can't be in the same ecosystem. So when you look at food chains and food webs, it's because of that interaction that they exist, and that forms the ecosystems that exist, right? So the jaguar on the forest floor, you get the spider monkey, in the canopy section, which is up in the trees. You get the emerald tree boa, you'll find in the understory by the just below the branches, climbing or slithering up the trunks. And you'll get the harpy eagle flying, soaring above the tree line, catching anything it could see in that ecosystem. All right. So I hope that made it clear. And if it didn't, I've got more over here about ecosystems. This is the ecosystem in a single drop of seawater. Now, that's very small. And in order to see the living things inside a drop of seawater, you need a microscope, which this is how the image was taken through a microscope, right? And you'll see that there's all sorts of living things. You get the animal microorganism animals, or the animal microorganisms. You get plant microorganisms like this algae over here. Right, you get this crustacean, this really microscopic crustacean, and they're interacting with each other and with the water, which is non-living. And because of that interaction, within the single drop of seawater, you have a ecosystem that is only a drop of seawater big, which is extremely tiny, but that still counts as an ecosystem because of the interaction between the living and non-living things. It's that simple, boys and girls. And if we expand it to planet size, we go, okay, Earth itself is also an ecosystem because you have the continents, you have the ocean between them, you have the living things that migrate between continents, like the birds, for example. You have the animals in the ocean, you have rivers flowing from the continent into the ocean, carrying nutrients, and oxygen and all sorts of other things. Even animals themselves, like animals can go from the ocean back into the rivers, like the salmon do it, right? Dolphins sometimes end up in the Amazon River. You get those Amazon dolphins. It's actually one large ecosystem where everything interacts. And if you think about just the oxygen that is produced by the Amazon rainforest, or even if you just consider all the rainforests producing oxygen, that is important for the entire planet, life on all Earth, even including us. So this is just one big ecosystem. And by the way, that the planet ecosystem, or the ecosystem that is Earth itself, is called the biosphere, which you'll learn about later. So it's just, that's what the ecosystem is. And let's just wrap this up quickly with just take everything we learned and put it into one, example, and that is the Savannah biome, right? So this Savannah biome spans this large area over here. It has its own climate. It looks like this. Inside the Savannah biome, we might find this type of habitat called a watering hole, right, which the animals come to drink. And it might not be a habitat for the African elephant, but it is definitely a habitat for this big little guy over here, the African bullfrog, right, who spends his entire life within the watering hole, right? He's born here, he grows up here, and then he lays his eggs, or he looks after his children here again, and it's like, and these generations continue. So that's a habitat. But all of this is also an ecosystem. So this biome is an ecosystem, this habitat is an ecosystem, and even this place where the bullfrog is standing is the ecosystem, because he's interacting with the water himself, making it an ecosystem. And I hope that was clear. I hope that really cleared it up for you, what a biome is, what a habitat is, and what an ecosystem is. All right, so to end off again, like always, never stop learning, and stay awesome. Till next time, bam.